In 1910, a nation confronts its growing pains. Larry Reidy here. 1910 was a year when America began to understand the weight of its own size, its population, its power, its industries, and its inequalities. Reformers demanded change. Workers demanded justice. Women demanded a voice. Farmers, immigrants, and urban laborers all began pushing back against the forces shaping the American life. Abroad, the United States flexed its muscles, while at home it wrestled with questions that would define the century ahead. This is the story of America in 1910, a nation vibrant, restless, and changing fast. William Howard Taft entered the office of presidency in 1910, trying to steady the ship of the state. But tensions within the Republican Party between progressives and conservatives were widening. Taft believed in legalism over theatrics, gradual change rather than rapid reform, judicial process instead of political confrontation. But in a country energized by Roosevelt's early dynamism, Taft's quieter approach sometimes felt out of steps with the moment. This was the most damaging political crisis Taft faced, the Ballinger-Pinchot controversy. The players, Richard Ballinger, Taft's Secretary of the Interior, Gifford Pinchot, Roosevelt's close friend and chief of the U.S. Forest Service. Pinchot accused Ballinger of improperly favoring private interests over conservation in Alaska land deals. Taft's response was he defended Ballinger and fired Pinchot, infuriating progressives and creating a deep rift with Roosevelt's supporters. The controversy symbolized a broader question. Should America's natural resources be preserved or exploited? Many believe Taft had abandoned Roosevelt's conservation legacy. The Republican family quarrel was now visible to the whole country. And we have the Mann Act, also known as the White Slave Traffic Act. The law made it a federal crime to transport women across state lines for immoral purposes. Originally intended to combat exploitation, it soon became a tool for moral policing. Nonetheless, the act reflected America's growing willingness to expand federal power into social issues. The Mexican Revolution and American borders. In 1910, revolution erupted in Mexico, toppling the long regime of Porfirio Diaz. The United States watched with deep concern. Trade routes were threatened, border towns braced for instability, refugees began crossing into Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. The revolution would reshape U.S.-Mexico relations for the next decade and foreshadow future American military involvements. Despite Taft's cautious leadership, the progressive spirit surged across the country. The energy was unbelievable. Reform movements intensified. Calls for women's suffrage grew louder. Farmers demanded fair railroad rates. Labor organizations pushed for shorter hours and safer workplaces. Cities demanded clean water, paved streets, and honest government. Good luck on that one. The people were ahead of Washington, and momentum was unmistakable. The great 1910 census revealed dramatic demographic growth. America now had over 92 million people, explosive urban expansion, surging immigration, massive industrial output. This data confirmed what Americans felt every day. The nation was growing faster than its political and social systems could adapt. The 1910 midterm elections created a power shift. The Republicans suffered a crushing defeat. Democrats seized control of the House of Representatives for the first time since 1984. Progressive Republicans openly opposed Taft, and conservatives felt he was too inconsistent. The election sent a clear message. Voters wanted reform, not hesitation, and Theodore Roosevelt, returning from Africa that year, saw the political landscape ripe for his return. The everyday American life in 1910 felt more modern than ever. Electricity reached more middle-class homes, telephones linked urban neighborhoods, streetcars carried millions of workers daily. Moving pictures gained enormous popularity. People flocked to Nickelodeons. The automobile became a regular sight on city streets. Sears catalogs carried products from Chicago to nearly every corner of the nation. Daily life was faster, louder, and more interconnected. In cultural, sports, and imagination, arts and entertainment, Broadway boomed, vaudeville remained the engine of popular comedy and music. Ragtime syncopated rhythms defined nightlife. In sports, baseball continued to reign with stars like Ty Cobb dominating headlines. Boxing surged in popularity, although racial tension surrounded Jack Johnson's championship. In science and exploration, interest in aviation grew following the Wright brothers' early success. Inventors across the nation experimented with engines, flight, radio, and new industrial technologies. So let's get into grading year 1910. The economy, industry remained strong. Automobile sales grew, cities prospered, but farmers struggled with railroad pricing, and labor unrest increased. Boy, they were really moving. I'd give it a B+. Foreign affairs, Mexican Revolution created uncertainty, though Taft handled the early stages cautiously. Overseas involvement remained limited but watchful. Let's give that one a B. Social life and culture. Culture vibrancy mixed with rising social tensions calls for suffrage, labor rights, and racial justice gained traction. Boy, B or B+, B or B+. Let's go with a B+. American spirit, national mood. Frustration with political leadership was widespread, yet optimism remained high in cities and industries. Americans believed change was coming, even if Washington lagged behind. Let's do a B on that. And overall national grade, I'd say a B+. That's good. Anyway, 1910 was a year of awakening when Americans demanded more from their leaders, more from their laws, and more from each other. The nation was growing in every sense: population, ambition, industry, and expectation. And while Taft tried to slow the tempo, the American people were marching to a faster beat. I'm Larry Reidy, and this has been 1910 in our journey to 250. Tomorrow we move into 1911 and continue telling the story of the greatest nation in the world. One thing, starting in 1911, you're going to see in the 20th and 21st century, there's an awful lot going on. And I've been trying to keep these podcasts as, at some 7, 12, 15 minutes. We're going to probably see a little longer podcast because you got women being allowed to vote coming up. You're going to have world wars, Korean War, idiocy of prohibition. There are things that you just can't go through in 10 or 12 minutes. So I'm trying to keep it brief, but it has to be informative. And with 140 episodes to go, 140 years to go, I have to make sure that everybody is well informed on each year because it's shaped our history shaped our future. And there's so many similarities in some of the idiocies in politics back in the early days and these nitwits and the Democrat politicians of today, which are socialist, communist, crazy people. And I hate to get political, but it's the truth. I'll never, ever be able to get over how they discriminated against blacks and how not one Democrat ever voted for the Emancipation Proclamation and what they did in the South with the lynchings, the Ku Klux Klan, everything. It's just unspeakable. And if you look at what's going on in Washington today, it is a shit show with the Democrat politicians. So anyway, off my high horse, I want to thank everybody for listening. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Talk to you on the next podcast, which will be 1911.